So, Alan the alien starts off as a pretty tough guy, but as the series goes on, his power level reaches some ridiculous heights. In order to understand his increase in power, first we have to know how he was created and what makes him special. So, the Omni-Man's homeworld was conquered swiftly and savagely by the Viltrumites during their initial push to establish their galactic empire. The surviving Omni-Mans fled to the stars looking for a new homeworld. They bred artificially until the very concept of natural procreation became offensive to them. At this time, the Omni-Mans began conducting genetic experiments on their own people to create warriors capable of fighting the Viltrumite Empire. The experiments, which were a dismal failure, created horribly disfigured children, except for a single child, and that child grew up to be Alan. Alan didn't simply survive, he grew strong, very strong, so strong that nothing he encountered was capable of hurting him. Alan underwent years of training and education in preparation for his first encounter with the Viltrumite Empire. When his people deemed him ready, Alan was sent out to face the enemy he was born to fight. Unfortunately for Alan, his first encounter went poorly. He was hopelessly outmatched and soundly defeated. After this encounter, the coalition of planets came up with a task that Alan was better suited for. Instead of battling the Viltrumites directly, he searched for someone else who could. Alan began traveling from planet to planet, doing battle with said planet's chosen warrior, testing them for their suitability not only as a champion, but also as a potential ally against the Viltrumites. Again, he found few that could stand against him, much less face down an adult Viltrumite. When Alan came to Earth, he faced an extremely powerful being, who was none other than Omni-Man. The two had a fierce battle, where Alan was defeated, not once or twice but 3 separate times over 15 years, but he was never seriously injured during any of these battles. The two never spoke, but the battles gave Alan hope that he had finally found the help that the coalition needed. Alan returned to Earth a final time as his schedule demanded, but this time he discovered that he would face a new champion who introduced himself as Invincible. When Alan and Invincible first fought, Alan was noticeably stronger and more experienced. At this point, Mark was still relatively new to his powers, lacking refined combat skills and endurance. Alan, on the other hand, was a seasoned warrior who had trained extensively as part of the coalition of planets. During their fight, Alan dominated Mark with ease, effortlessly blocking his attacks and knocking him around without taking much damage. However, Alan wasn't trying to seriously hurt Mark. He was simply testing Earth's champion as part of his routine assessments. Mark, still early in his superhero journey, lacked the refined combat skills and endurance needed to compete with someone of Alan's caliber. However, compared to Omni-Man, Alan was significantly weaker at this stage. While Alan had incredible durability and regeneration, he lacked the raw power and combat mastery that made Omni-Man one of the most feared beings in the universe. So, in their first encounter, Alan was far beyond Mark but nowhere near Omni-Man's level. And if you guys remember, Alan had already encountered a Viltrumite before he started working for the Coalition of Planets. So it's possible that Alan was even weaker than base Invincible, and he gained significant power after his first beatdown at the hands of a Viltrumite. So, when Invincible tells Alan about him being a half Viltrumite and his father leaving Earth, Alan was stunned because never before had a Viltrumite abandoned his post. After Alan left Invincible for a second time, he returned to his home on Talos Krea, capital of the Coalition of Planets. Alan immediately told the good news to the council, and they were as excited as he was. He left the council and went to his girlfriend's apartment. Telia, his girlfriend, is another species and a very sexual one, which proves troublesome for Alan, whose people have forbid any form of physical love. His downtime with his girlfriend was interrupted by a trio of Viltrumite assassins who questioned him on the veracity of his claims. When they don't get the information that they needed, the ruthless Viltrumites literally ripped Alan apart, severing his arm, punching gaping holes in his torso, and removing his eye. This was a complete one-sided beatdown, as Alan was not strong enough to handle one Viltrumite, so 3 of them were definitely too much for him. Despite all of this, Alan's resilience proved to be greater than the damage that the Viltrumites could deal. After his body was retrieved from the depths of space, he spent several months comatose within a coalition hospital on the planet Talos Krea. When he awakened, Alan discovered that he had gotten stronger, much stronger. In fact, Phadus, one of the founders and current leader of the Coalition of Planets, revealed to Alan that his strength and durability were now at Viltrumite levels. So, this immense power growth is a direct result of his species' unique biology, which also separates him from his own people. Though his body is shattered, his Omni-Man physiology triggers an extreme regenerative response, accelerating mitosis and cellular fortification beyond its previous limits. When he finally awakens from a coma, his muscle fibers have become denser, his skeletal structure reinforced, and his overall strength, speed, and durability vastly amplified. Essentially, his body interprets fatal damage as a signal to evolve, ensuring that he returns not just healed, but far more powerful than before. This biological advantage allows Alan to later fight Viltrumites on nearly equal footing, a feat that would have been impossible before his transformation. Alan's fight with Anissa is a crucial moment that proves just how much stronger he has become after his near-death experiences. Anissa is a high-ranking Viltrumite, known for her brutal strength and combat skill, and earlier in the series, a battle between them would have been completely one-sided in her favor. However, by this point, Alan's body has undergone multiple cycles of extreme cellular regeneration, making him exponentially stronger than before. During their fight, Anissa underestimates Alan, expecting him to be an easy opponent. However, Alan not only holds his own, but begins overpowering her. His strikes are powerful enough to stagger and hurt her, something that was previously unthinkable for a non-Viltrumite. Just before Anissa and Alan's encounter, Anissa had brutally overpowered Invincible, and he wasn't able to put a scratch on her. Meanwhile, Alan punched her so hard that she started bleeding. So at this point, Alan was definitely strong enough to beat a Viltrumite like Anissa in a one-on-one fight. But during the battle, Alan remembered his talk with Invincible about how his dad was taken in for execution. So, Alan formed a plan to throw the fight and free Omni-Man while on the inside. Alan then uses his telepathic abilities and tells Nolan of his plan. Nolan is initially reluctant to try. Alan would also talk about his girlfriend, Telia, and how much he loves her. However, the Omni-Man forbids their union. Nolan would go on to talk about his love for his wife and how it goes against Viltrumite's beliefs. Alan is then attempted to be executed by an unnamed alien race conquered by the Viltrumites. Alan was subjected to relentless torture and multiple execution attempts. The Viltrumites, recognizing his potential threat to their empire, sought to kill him in every way possible. Beatings, high-impact trauma, and methods designed to obliterate his body. However, every single attempt failed. Alan's Omni-Man physiology, which allows him to adapt and grow stronger from near-death experiences, kept him alive against all odds. Instead of dying, his body responded by reinforcing itself at a cellular level. His muscle density increased, his skeletal structure hardened, and his healing factor became even more accelerated. His natural durability skyrocketed to the point where no conventional execution method could finish him off. The Viltrumites were unknowingly triggering his evolutionary process, making him stronger with each failed attempt. This period of suffering essentially acted as an extreme training regimen, similar to how Viltrumites themselves become stronger through constant battle. And the difference is clear. Look at him when he was first taken to the Viltrumite prison, and look at him now, and anyone can see that at this point no one in the Viltrumite prison is strong enough to hold Alan there if he wishes to break out. The only reason is because he wants to recruit Nolan and any other prisoner who might be strong enough to fight against the Viltrumites. The two developed an escape plan that was simple but required them to wait for Nolan to fully recover. The time eventually came when Nolan had regained his formidable strength and his scheduled execution could take place. As the ceremonial execution began, Alan put their plan into motion. Alan breaks free of his restraints and breaks other prisoners out. Alan scans the prisoners to see if they look strong and gets Battle Beast to aid him. They break into the execution room and fight with the Viltrumites, attempting to kill Nolan. Alan breaks Nolan's restraints easily and frees him, and this again shows how strong Alan is, even compared to Nolan. Sue, Alan punches a hole into the prison due to his ability to survive in space. He flies into space to be attacked by one of the Viltrumites. Nolan intervenes, and with their combined power, they kill the Viltrumite. But it probably wasn't their combined power, it was more likely Alan's power, and even Omni-Man, along with Alan himself, was shocked at how strong he has become, because this was the first time Alan had killed a pure-blooded elite Viltrumite soldier. His durability has reached a point where Viltrumite attacks no longer cripple him, and his raw strength has grown to surpass average Viltrumite levels. Later, when the Viltrumites attack planet Talos Krea, Alan faces off against General Craig, one of the high-ranking Viltrumite warriors. Craig, being a high-ranking Viltrumite, is immensely powerful, but for the first time Alan is able to dominate the fight, and I don't think Alan even got a nosebleed from fighting him. Next, when Alan goes to planet Viltrum along with his allies, he proves to every single Viltrumite and Coalition member that he the strongest warrior from the Coalition's side. Alan saves Tech Jacket by decapitating his Viltrumite captor. Another Viltrumite charged for him, and he easily kills him by impaling his arm through his stomach, out of the Viltrumite's mouth. These are not just any Viltrumites. These are almost on the same level as Omni-Man, Anissa and General Craig, and Alan. Just killing them in one shot means that after Frag, he is the strongest one fighting in this war. While Frag is fighting Nolan and Mark, Alan is getting attacked by 5 Viltrumites. They break his arm, and other than that, he is still in one piece. 5 adult Viltrumite warriors were not able to kill Alan. I mean, at this point, Alan might be too powerful. But soon, Alan and Space Racer escape, and when they return, the war is mostly over, as Nolan and Mark are left in a near-death state by Frag. 2 weeks later, Mark wakes up from his coma. Alan goes to visit him, and is relieved that Mark is alive. Mark asks him what he's wearing, and he says that his arm was broken in the battle. Alan also reveals that he was made the leader of Coalition of Planets after Phaedus' death. Alan then fights against Nolan when he decided to release the Scourge virus on Earth. It's clear that Alan has become far stronger than ever before. He completely overpowers Nolan, throwing him around with ease and landing devastating blows that shakes Nolan entirely. Unlike their past interactions, where Nolan was the physically superior warrior, Alan now outclasses him in raw strength, speed, and endurance. Every punch Alan lands visibly hurts Nolan, who struggles to keep up and is unable to mount a meaningful counterattack. This fight is a direct testament to Alan's extreme biological adaptation. The only moment when Alan gets hurt is when Oliver attacks his genitals, and Alan reveals that his genitals are extremely sensitive. The only other sensitive part in his body is his eye. Other than that, he is almost indestructible. After beating up Nolan badly, he goes to Earth, and when Mark resists, he beats him as well. Alan only takes a back seat when Frag arrives to stop him, and at this point, Frag is the only Viltrumite who is capable of killing Alan in a one-on-one fight. Later, Alan is attacked in an assassination attempt orchestrated by the rebels who oppose his leadership of the Coalition of Planets. The assassination attempt occurs when a trusted Coalition officer betrays Alan and attacks him with his own Coalition soldiers. Alan effortlessly beats all the soldiers, but when he gets to their boss, he is surprised by a bomb specifically designed to kill him. Alan manages to survive, but most of his body is destroyed, along with his arms and legs. After surviving the assassination attempt, Alan's Unipan physiology once again adapts, pushing him to an even greater level of durability and resilience. The bomb that nearly killed him caused catastrophic damage to his body, leaving him severely injured. His flesh was burned, torn apart, and left in a critical state. However, as with every near-death experience, Alan's unique biology responded by evolving, ensuring that he would never be as vulnerable to such an attack again. When he fully heals, Alan becomes noticeably stronger and significantly more durable. His body develops a new layer of natural armored scales, which act as a protective shield against similar high-energy attacks. These scales increase his resistance to explosions, heat, and physical trauma, making him even harder to injure in future battles. This transformation is a direct result of his Unipan genetic trait, which allows him to rapidly evolve in response to fatal injuries, ensuring that he continues to grow stronger after every severe wound he endures. This power boost makes Alan even more of a threat to his enemies, as now he is not only stronger than elite Viltrumites, but also more resistant to weapons that would have previously been fatal. The failed assassination attempt, rather than weakening him, ultimately backfires, as it forces his body to evolve past its previous limits, turning him into an even more unstoppable force in the universe. After this, Alan never got to face someone who was way stronger than him. Mark attacked him once when Oliver died, but he sustained no damage at all other than his bleeding eye. After this, during the final war against Thrag, Alan mostly fought against Thrag's children, and they were like flies in Alan's comparison. When Mark fought Thrag inside the sun, he gets fried up to a state where he could no longer move his body. So Alan enters the sun and saves Mark, and it was probably because of the new scales that Alan had developed that he didn't even get any burn marks on his body. Later, after a couple of 100 years, when the Viltrum Empire grew exponentially under Mark's leadership, Coalition of Planets started a war with the new Viltrumite Empire, and Alan, who is the leader of Coalition of Planets, fought Mark, who is the Emperor of Viltrumites, and Mark won this fight. However, both of them were unharmed, so it's hard to say which one of them is stronger. At this point, Mark is far more stronger than Thrag. Alan is also in a league of his own, and these two are probably some of the strongest beings in the known universe, and they still have potential for immense growth. The last power-up Alan received was when the bomb destroyed his entire body, and after that, I don't think anyone except Mark can trigger his body to evolve. But I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.